It's not about what you have. It's about who you have. It's not about where you live. It's about how you live. And it's not about what you do. It's about why you do it. Welcome to the Momentasize podcast. Today, I have a very special guest for us. He's a partner of mine, a best friend, somebody that I do every single day with. Without further ado, please help me welcome Conor Johnston to the podcast.
Hey, I am stoked to be here.
What's going on,
I'm glad
man?
I got the invitation finally.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. What is it like? Most people say you shouldn't work with friends or you shouldn't do business with friends. What do you think about that?
I would say that's contrary to popular belief. You just got to go for it.
Yeah.
It's been in a journey even last year. I wonder why that is, because you do hear that from people, and I've only done it once in my life, and that's been the year from 29 to 30, and it's been a rocket ship of a ride.
I think that people just need to get better friends or do better business.
Yeah, it'd be a little more. I guess the beautiful thing was when this happened about a little over a year ago, April 2023.
Yeah,
remember you called me. I was in New York City at the time, and you pitched the offer. You set it up nicely, and you didn't have to sell me that hard. But I think what worked for us is we were very clear on expectations on both sides, and I think that's what you get with a best friend as well. It should be. If you can't have like a clear, open, honest conversation about anything, but work related with the best friend, then yeah, it's not meant to be. But that's exactly what we had.
Yeah. And I think that's also how you build an empire, right? There's the idea of Ray Dalio is the one who wrote that out. The idea of that the best idea wins, and to have radical transparency with each other and communicate very well, direct, and just make it happen. Even if you have disagreements, to be able to have the good communication and let the best idea win so you can move forward.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that's what this year has actually been. If you think about it, a bunch of collaboration, but as well, we get to bring our minds together and challenge each other. And it's been, that's where this empire started really a year ago. You think about it's 2 years in at that time. Now we're 3 years into this journey, Momentasize Companies. And I think I'm so fortunate to think about the person that I get to grow this company with is my best friend who started the company. And
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, that more into the company side, what it's been like working together and just growing the business together. But what about origin story for people who don't know Conor Johnston? Tell us a little bit of origin story.
Absolutely. A family of 6 siblings. You know, my twin brother, obviously, another best friend of yours, best friend of mine as well. We standard upbringing, but once we went to college, where we met actually playing soccer together, after that, transitioning out of sport into the world of work and the professional world, as people say, I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to find a mentor that I went and joined in Napa, California for 4 years. And that's one thing that I'd like to touch on is mentorship in the world of business. But after Napa, after working with this fiery entrepreneur who's 93 years old, who's been doing it for 60 plus decades, wheeling and dealing across the Napa Valley and beyond. I then went to New York City for a year, had another great mentor, for 2 years, and worked in commercial brokerage for a year, had a great mentor there in Ariel Shakuri. And then from there, came out here and another great mentor, but also my best friend, which is pretty fucking special.
Yeah, it's been super special, right? When you're able to, when that's a two-way relationship.
Yeah.
And it's been a blast to be able to come in, have an idea, come in, bring really talented people who also are your best friends that you like. If you look at our company in general, the culture that we've been able to create, we're working with a bunch of friends building a really special business. And it's been, that component's been a blast for sure. And it's living that growth mind's been a huge part of it.
Yeah.
A huge part of it. What do you think when, come in, you came in from, you were in New York, right?
2 years.
2 years in New York. What's it like going from the concrete jungle of New York to coming to a place like Ben?
Well, that was a big selling point. I think when you gave me that phone call in April 2023, my heart of hearts needed to get out of that and back into nature. And it's been a 180 degree shift in everything. But boy, does it help living in a place like Bend, to be able to build an empire with your best friends, and in a market that it's, in life, I think you can have hard work, and hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I think there's also this timing component as well. And we're in a pretty crazy time right now, I think, where I've had this opportunity now to join my best friend in the world of real estate, construction and development, in a market that would have been considered a tertiary market 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and it is exploding. And here we are at, maybe call it ground one. Ground zero might have already been, it's gone vertical off the ground, but have an opportunity to make a massive impact in a really beautiful spot. Whereas in New York City, geez, the market was incredibly saturated, as you can imagine. Mm-hmm. All the biggest wheelers and dealers in the world are in that market. And who knows, maybe one day we'll be putting up, maybe we'll have to change the zoning codes here in Bend, Oregon. So we get higher than 66 stories.
Yeah, 6 stories, 85 feet.
Yeah, 85 feet. We'll have to get the zoning ordinance changed.
Yeah, you best believe it. I got my own building, that tallest building in Bend. Like a small little mini version of Trump.
Absolutely.
All people are going to hate hearing that. Momentasize
towers right across the top of it. They're pretty special.
They're going to
I think that's going to happen. I think in Central Oregon, I can picture it. Because that drive we took to Boise, Idaho not too long ago, you think about like geographically where it's located, there's no reason why Central Oregon can't become like that kind of a primary market, but like a secondary city across the states. I think if you think about the markets in and around Bend, it has the potential to like truly expand.
Yeah, and they're doing it. And then you look at like even how the city's trying to deal with the growth, because there has been massive growth, right? It's like if you got a roundabout, Bend is like a city that was 18,000 people 20 years ago, right? And the whole thing was designed off. You have one major highway, Highway 97, with then essentially a bunch of roundabouts, right? Yeah. So it's a roundabout town that has now had, because of its beauty, its destination, 300 days of sunshine, it's got a ton of influx of people coming in. And so the city, they're like, how are we going to deal with this? Still keep the Bend feel, because what makes these smaller towns, 100,000 people, smaller towns feel special is that feel, like being able to have some space, et cetera, right? So when the city had all these people come in, and they expanded the UGB, they did exactly what you were saying. The UGB is the urban growth boundary. So they expanded the size of the city by annexing what was in the county now into the city limits. And they try to contain those density codes, because they knew exactly what you said. Like, what's the only thing you can do when you have this many people come? Yeah. Well, you can only go up. So in that 70%, that's where they started changing some of the building code. And that's where even some of the opportunities you and I look at every day now is like changing not only the building code to go vertical, but also the like House Bill 2001, where you have middle housing, and you start looking at being able to buy a house, cut up some land, and sell it out. So
absolutely. And if you're not going to, so it's to the city council and the powers to be. If they're not going to expand that urban growth boundary, then there's only going to be so much middle housing you can get done before you actually do have to just say, hey, we're going higher. Yeah. And we are going to be positioned for that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let's talk a little bit about the business side, the construction business side, what that's been like. Because when you came on, we were right at this tipping point of, I started the business. I was wearing every single hat, doing it all by myself. We got to a tipping point where we finally had enough projects in front of us to bring on some talented people, you being one of the first ones, but we had no systems in place. Talk to us a little bit about what that was like, and then what it's been like being a huge integral part of putting those systems in place and growing it out.
Yeah. What I will say right up front is it is incredibly challenging. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, the fact that you even took a chance on me to come and try to implement this, just try to bring this now to the next level. You're as serious as it can be about building an empire, and I bought into that, and I'm still bought into that. And it's happening. It's in motion now. But coming in just over a year ago, it was chaos. Yeah. But I think any entrepreneur is going to say the exact same thing, and that's no malice towards you.
No, it's good.
It was chaos. It was, but you're a one-man show. And like, you think about, for anyone that knows construction, it's the back end stuff, it's the administrative stuff that you just get absolutely destroyed on. And if you're not tracking that, you can keep pushing deal flow, build a pipeline, you got your next deal lined up, super excited. You can kind of project, budget what your fees are going to be over the next 12 months. Like, holy, I'm going to make so much money. This is great. And then you forget about your certificates, insurance, work orders, master contract agreements, figuring out exactly how these are sequencing on a master budget side and a master schedule. And it was coming into it to have to kind of work through that minutia and figure out, okay, where are we weakest right now? And from my point of view, it was that back end side, and it was getting the system in place where you, from the time you're submitting permits on a new deal, you have all these checklists that you can hit, and you know exactly what needs to be lined up. So once a new deal starts, you've got the master schedule set up. That's templated now. We got our master budget set up. That's templated now based on what we're doing. You've got your builder's risk insurance, all the insurance components lined up now. And that's all teed up. Every time we start a project, boom, 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 checklist. And you think about how many projects you were doing as a solo entrepreneur. I think you might say differently, but it sounds like you're capped up at like, call it 5 to 10.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, 5 might have been a little bit of a heavy burden to carry as a solo entrepreneur. Yeah. But now we've got 8 people in place from the time I started, which I think we were at 5, and I've added 3 super talented people. Yeah. And now we're looking at a consistent pipeline, consistent active portfolio of construction projects, units per doors. We're looking at, we're at 50 plus at one point, moved up close to 100, back down to 50, fluctuating right in that realm of doors. And think about how special that is. That's true scale in 12 months, just over 12 months. And we're only getting better.
Yeah, we're only getting better. Remember those nights where it was like during draw season, we were like, I think what we were doing, we were like working all day, going home for dinner, and then coming back at like 9 o'clock, pounding like a couple Red Bulls and working till midnight just to get the draws, just because there's no way around it.
I think I stepped in on, so again, for those that don't know the construction world, it's that monthly draw process that really hangs up people as well. And it's taking account of all the work that's being done on the project and tracking all the expenses, and then getting that into a budget or a draw sheet so that you can formally present it to whoever the lender is, whether it's a private lender or a conventional bank. And that package, we try to do a really good job on it. It's a very transparent system that we have. But to get that done, it's like this huge uplift at the end of every month. And I joined it was the end of May, coming into the beginning of June. And I think you're like, shit, should I bring him into this now? Because I got here on a Sunday, hit the ground running that Monday, and it like draws needed to get submitted that week. It was June 5th. I think if you looked at the calendar, it was Monday, June 5th. And like, that's when they should be in latest. And first week I was sitting there with my best friend at 9 p.m. sipping Red Bulls, trying to,
make it happen.
Trying to learn, and make it happen.
Yeah, till 12 p.m. And
12 p.m.
Those are the behind the scenes. I think that one, like, we'll never forget, but 2 other people, unless it was told like we just told, would never see. And so, when you're going through that journey, it just takes what it takes. And like you said, it is exciting to look back and go from, hey, when you came on to where we are now, the systems that have been put in place, like, we're far from where we need to be.
Absolutely.
But we have a foundation where now we can scale. And it's such a crazy thing when you look at the hardest thing in any business, in my opinion, is there's 2 really challenging things. One comes a little easier, and that's because we have a great infrastructure. But I think building the business system, like you said, the back of house business system, like the grindy homework-like system to make sure everything's happening the way it needs to me, that's one of the hardest things to do. Once you have it built, and that cog in that, like, that's your cog in it's essentially your machine. Once you have it built and it's operating, then it's just fine tuning, right? Yep. It's like, well, machine, when you scale, you can then it becomes bringing on more people. But building that thing that's
the best part. And that's been that challenge that you and I are going back and forth on often is, okay, at this point now we've got like 60 active construction projects going on, 60 active units. Do we need more human capital? And I think it's like, no, I think we're still in this the size of the company that we're at right now, I think we can still get better and better at our systems, like operational systems, rather than bringing in more human capital or human. Humans.
Yeah, humans. Exactly.
Yeah, employees and helping solve problems based on hours in the day. But I think we can eliminate those or get more efficient and effective with our hours in the day with just better systems. And it's happening. It's happening. We have those in place. We're getting them in place.
Yeah. See, this is why you hire people that think differently and are smarter than you are in certain ways. Because what Conor's saying is when we were hitting these capacity issues, I would go to Conor and I'd be like, hey, do we need to hire more people? He's like, no, we need to fix the system. Right. And so I was like, hey, there's so much happening. Let's throw people at this problem. Conor's like, no, let's solve the problem and then let technology and a system solve it first. It's not throwing people at a problem. It's solving the system. And then once the system's solved and the technology set in place, then you can say, okay, now, yes, we have a good system. Now we truly need to add a person. And so that was like when I went to Conor and I was like, dude, let's throw another person. He's like, no, let's build a better system. And that's why you bring on really talented people to partner with, because that's how you get something that we're building today. So
yeah. I appreciate that.
What do you think like when you're building those and you're looking at it, do you think like what are some of the best tools that you can use or best ways to build those systems? What have you seen working?
Yeah, I think in the today's age, you need to explore different softwares. I think a big uplift in our company on the construction side is becoming more and more familiar with the best types of construction management software. And what we're using now is Procore. And you can find out that these tools it's like having 10 extra humans in place before completing like those hourly tasks that end up taking so much of your time out of the day. But I would say if you're a young entrepreneur right now looking at real estate or starting a business, no matter what industry or vertical you're looking at, you can utilize software before you actually have to start adding more humans into the equation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And going back, that's Conor brought, like we were using Procore. We weren't using it. We were like C-. We looked at each other and we're we're like a C- or D level. We're like, we're failing at using this technology. And when you look at the best companies, if you look at your competitors and the best companies, what was the pattern? Well, they were properly integrating, like you said, software technology into their business to scale. And so we really committed over using Traction, which is a book I talk about a lot. We really committed to taking that technology and putting it to use. And now it's exactly like you said, we take our playbooks, our action plans, our scheduling, all of it runs through that system. And it's allowed us to control and scale much better than if we had 10 people.
That's
10
exactly
more people, right?
And yeah, I think like those conversations we're having, it's important for everyone to look in the mirror and say, okay, what's our big aha moment was, what's the average age of our company right now?
Yeah.
If you get the medium age, you're like, how are we not in the 99th percentile of tech enablers or users in this industry? We should be cutting edge.
Yeah.
And we're still not there by any means, but the intentions are there. Every week we're checking in to see how our Procore software is progressing within how we're integrating it across all aspects of our business through Traction, which has been incredibly helpful. And I think that's what enables us to keep the team nimble, but super effective and efficient. And it'll be interesting to review this and see where we're at in 12 months' time to say, have our systems gotten better, which they should. If they're not, then we're failing. Yeah. So they should be a lot better. But where are we at then from an employee side? Are we growing as well? And I think if that's happening together, that means the empire's in motion.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's what's fun about these podcasts too. They're one, to push them out for, like, I learn a lot in the conversations, but two, it's also like a little time cap. So I think Friday said this on one of the podcasts we had. Yeah, Friday, a good friend of ours, he's like, yeah, it's a little time capsule that you can go back to, right? And we will revisit it, see where we're at. What's the worst part about, if you're like somebody's thinking about getting into construction or running a construction business, what's the worst part about the construction business?
This one's funny because I've got a couple peers that are in the world of construction, and I could never really relate to their troubles that they would experience on a daily basis in operating a construction business, whether they're a GC or a subcontractor working for a GC. But joining you in the world of construction, I'm starting to realize how much of it you bring home.
Yeah.
And you have a tough time shutting off at a certain point because it's just, there's so many small details across projects. And saying that out loud, maybe that's something we need to address, but it's just think about the details that you have to cover across 60 plus projects. Well, let's call it 14 plus projects. We're not counting doors here, but actual foundations.
Yeah.
And you get into like the last 60 days of a project where the details really matter, and that's what everyone sees. And then you're closing 5 or 6 of those at a time, and you're
10. We had 10
closing at a time, looking for C of Os on 10 projects in the matter of like 30 days, call it.
Yeah.
And you can use software, you can use systems to track details, but I think the toughest part for me right now is how much you still continue to bring home. Not necessarily bring home, but think about it's hard to shut off. It's hard to shut off.
Yeah, it's 24.
But that's the realities I think of starting a company and like trying to grow a company the way we're trying to.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with you. That's one of the hardest things to do, and one of the most, because it's one of the hardest things to do, it's also one of the most important things because, like I was experiencing this a lot with my wife, and it goes back to Stephen Covey. He talks about like the things that are urgent and important get all your attention because they're all those things. They're urgent and important. They get all the attention. And then the things that are the most important, but they're not necessarily urgent, or they're not like knocking on the door, they don't have the deadline, those get neglected because you're thinking so much about nonstop about the things that are important and urgent that you forget about this bucket here. And so it's one of the hardest things, I think, that probably a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people trying to grow businesses where they're constantly thinking about it because they care about it. Yeah. It's probably one of the hardest things to do. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. What are some of the ways that you do find yourself being able to detach or not think about it constantly? What are ways you deal with that?
I am extremely blessed to have a wife that pushes me in many aspects of my life, but one in the world of running. And then I get to share that with my best friend as well. And this is taking it back to what gets me out of that headspace is the pursuit of fitness. And we can get into that as well, but running really helps me kind of, even if we're talking business or whatever, but it's the chemicals that in your brain that just change your dopamine release, and you can kind of air out anything and everything on a run. Like after an 8-mile run here in Bend, the problems that were present in front of mind before this run happened, and then what you had to assess and analyze afterwards, it's an easy way to process problems, easy way to process stress. But yeah, that's probably exercise and fitness, and in particular running is probably how I would handle a lot of that. And then just spend a lot of free time, the free time that I do have, and trying to be intentional in the moment with my loved ones.
Yeah. I couldn't.
But it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
It is hard.
It's really hard. I do want to go into the running a little bit because I agree with you. It's like I call it movement meditation. I've heard people say like mental shower. Yeah. Whatever it is, right? I agree. Like if you're really pissed at somebody, just go on and run with them. Just go on and run together for a little bit, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So, and I'm lucky. You and I, we don't get pissed at each other too often. There's hard moments, but we've got this really lucky thing going, and our best friend Riley, who's freaking making all this happen right now, is also in on the train too now.
I know. Yeah,
it's an amazing component to our company, and a lot of people I don't think get to experience that, but I would say it's worth making that effort to share. If you're working with your best friend, and that was the first question you asked me, is like, what is it like working with your best friend? I think that's why that's a huge component as to why this dynamic works. Is not only are we in the war room on a daily basis, solving hard problems and trying to make it happen in the business world, but I get to become a better version of myself in the workplace, but also mind and body outside of it. And I cherish that. It's really special dynamic that we have. I don't think a lot of best friends, you ask someone like, what kind of relationship do you have with your best friend? I don't know. It tends to be like you share, I shouldn't say it, but you share different types of experiences. Yeah. I don't think many people get to share the types of experiences that we get to experience both outside of the workplace and in the workplace.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I remember when on the running one, when you came to me and you're like, hey dude, the guys are running the Eugene Marathon. Should we do it? And I was a little nervous, but I was like, yeah, let's do it. And the journey, when we decided to do it, what happens when you decide to do those big challenging things, I think what the best things that happen are you get connected on this big goal that is going to be really hard. And then the journey of like planning it out and executing it week in, week out, day in, day out. That journey to me it's my favorite part. Doing the race itself is like a good part of the climax. Yeah. But when you look back and you think about the race is just one piece. It's the journey along the way. That's where all the real crazy joy comes.
It's the magic right there.
That's the magic.
Yeah, it is the magic. It's the spontaneity of what the hell happens in like an 18-mile workout on a Sunday morning. And you're like, geez, how's this going to go? But like the unknowns, I think it's the special moments are when like special moments are in those unknowns. That's where the magic's made.
That is where the magic's made. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, I want to be friends with psychopaths because I'm a little psycho. And so we ran this Eugene Marathon and we get done with it. We hit our goals. We ran it in like 2 hours and 58. Well, you could have dropped me. You could have dropped me. No, Conor could have dropped me at mile 22. You could have dropped me, dude.
It's a massive unknown.
No, it's not.
Because what happened was, okay, you're struggling from 21 to 24, sure. But then 25, you just took out, dude, you took off like a freaking lightning bolt. And I had to hang on.
Yeah, you were always going to hang on. I'm telling you, you could have dropped me like you could have just left me hanging. I would have just fizzled out, but you stuck with me and I really appreciated that. I would have done the same thing for you, but I appreciate that.
You would have or would not have?
I would have.
I know you would have.
So but we finished that race, right? We had that goal. We hit that. Conor could have dropped me. He didn't, which means he could have run faster. And so of course he comes up with the idea. He's like, hey dude, let's try to run a 2 hour and 40 minute marathon in Sacramento. Right. And that's where we're just starting that journey now.
That's where essentially week one really of like the proper training block. Yeah. And what do we have? We've got 26 miles at 6 minute pace, 6:03, 6:04.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That makes
scary.
It's like that scares me.
I know. That's really fun to have scary goals.
Yeah. Like that really actually really scares me to run at 6 minute pace for 26 miles.
Yeah. We'll have check-ins along the way, but it's within our capabilities, no doubt about it. It's going to be super challenging, but most things in this world, if it's not challenging, it's not worth doing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that's why I like being friends with people who are going to push you and challenge you to do that. And when I hear that, even when I think about trying to do it, it makes me nervous because I know the work that has to go in. Like we're already doing it now, right? Like this week we're up at 4:45 running the 7 miles we need to. We're, we've got after work, we'll go and do our training. The work itself, what makes me the most nervous, the race, yes, but also all the work that has to go into it. Yeah. It's just a major commitment, but
it's a huge commitment.
What else would you want, right?
I know. We'll just have to, we'll have to see. We got the third on the way. So it'll be like this cool balance. I'll have to step up and be like, okay, what can I take off Shay's plate here?
Yeah, that's right. We'll make it work. Stroller runs are real, dude.
Yeah, they are so real. When I got to Bend, we were doing stroller runs like 4 days a week out in the Magic Forest. What's it called? Enchanted.
Yeah, that's right. The Magic Forest. Up in the forest, 100%. Yeah. Good. Let's pivot back a little bit to the overall investing world. I know like you're super passionate and involved in investing in crypto. I know we're invested together in the real estate side. You're buying your first house. Let's break each one down. So just starting with crypto, how you see it, what you think about it.
I think it's off-putting to probably to most people, general public, because it's been like this crazy volatile market over the last, call it 10 years, and you've been tracking it in the last 6 years. You just think of all these like meme projects and coins and like
Shiba Inu.
Yeah, like what the hell is the utility to most of this? Yeah. But the way I like to frame it is you think about the introduction of the internet, whenever it was, the 80s, 70s, and then like became kind of mainstream. Every household in America had started to get like a sniff of it in the late 80s, early 90s. You had like the .com boom then. And you had all these crazy companies popping up out of everywhere, like pets.com, dogs.com, cats.com, birds.com. That's an animal trend right there. But like you just had like the most wild companies popping up. It's like the Shiba Inus of today.
Yeah.
And my thesis is it's a technology that is going to be like a paradigm shift in the world of business, where you'll have the biggest players, biggest institutions, banks, insurance companies, sovereign wealth funds, governments, transacting on blockchains, whether they're public blockchains like Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, Bitcoin, or if they're back-end private blockchains like Wells Fargo operating their own back-end private blockchain, Chase Bank, Fidelity, all the insurance companies. So they'll have all their data now stored on this blockchain, which is just it's a ledger, like an Excel sheet of every transaction to track and all expenses, all outflows, inflows of a company's doings. But I think what we're going to see is like you're going to have the winners, like you had in the .com bubble, that transition into like the internet, Web 2. You had Amazon, Facebook, Google, the big players that everyone knows about, who made a huge difference in the lives of everyone across the world. I mean, think about where people were at in the 60s, 70s without any of that. You can't probably even think back. It's hard for us to understand because we're 30 years old, and we only exist in the world of like that. We were young enough when the dot-com boom was happening, but not really aware of the madness. But I've been able to speak to enough people now who did go through that and realize like, geez, yeah, there are comparables here, comparisons to say that it's whether or not you believe in this technology. Is it going to work? And why would you believe in this technology?
And the technology you're specifically talking about, blockchain
technology. Yeah. And what that's going to do essentially on a high level is just allow the big players, banks, insurance companies, to transact and save on the operational side of their businesses like exponentially. So it's going to eliminate human capital, and it's going to allow transactions to flow way quicker and securely and a lot more transparently. So the idea is, since everyone can now kind of see where the inflows and outflows of dollars are going, which should kind of eliminate these booms and busts that we see from egregious players in like the Enrons of the world who are blowing up people's bank accounts, or in 2008 was Stern and then a couple of the major banks that were bad players in the mortgage crisis that happened. I think today blockchain technology will help make that world of data transfer and money transfer and flow be a lot more transparent. And my take is there's a couple companies that are going to enable these public blockchain or private blockchains on the back ends of all these major companies allowed to transact and interact with each other. Because right now blockchains are inherently closed off systems, protected systems. Yeah,
they have to be for security.
Yeah. But now you are one of the big plays that I think will ultimately yield, this is not financial advice, but like yield dividends or appreciation in price and utility is Chainlink. And they're trying to create that essentially that freeway of information between private blockchains and public blockchains. So now you can communicate like the internet of today, where you can now ping someone on a server in Europe somewhere. You can have your blockchain, your private blockchain, speak to another private blockchain in a foreign land immediately. So you can, the one that sits with me is how expensive it is to transfer large sums of money from one bank to another, or from a personal account to a bank, where let's say you're moving $1 billion. It's hard for some people to comprehend that, or not $1 billion, $1 trillion. Yep. $1 trillion in one quarter. If you're a bank, a big player, and you're moving $1 trillion in a quarter, you can now settle those dollars that are being transferred in T-0 days. So the time to transfer that dollar and settle in another account is 0 days. Whereas today, now in the Web 2 world, it takes 3 days. And if you can earn 5% interest on $1 trillion that's being moved 3 days versus 0 days, like that's the significant money. And you're going to see that I think what you're going to have is like some big players be like, okay, we're going to start using blockchain now to transfer funds or to communicate with other backends, private backends. And it's going to be a lot more efficient and effective than having to use our standard systems today, like Swift. Swift is cooperative of 11,000 banks, and that's how we transfer and settle dollars today across most of the Western world. But I think you're going to have a couple big players take a chance. They're all setting up their back end private blockchains now.
Yeah,
that is common knowledge. But now what we're starting to see is they're starting to move funds in like these sandbox testing worlds.
Yeah, they're testing it from here to here to make sure, hey, was this secure? Did this happen?
Did it in fact transfer and settle on the same day?
Yeah, same day,
instantaneously.
Did it happen?
And it's happening.
Yeah, it's happening because all the case studies are publicly out there and you're getting produced, like they're getting released. And so you're reading through them because you're obsessed about it.
Well, it's a crazy time to be. It is crazy time. To be in this world. What's too bad is it's not sexy. Yeah. It really isn't sexy.
But that's the best thing to invest in. Just do the sexy thing. The sexy things don't.
The sexy thing is Doge and Shiba Inu right now.
Exactly.
Holy shit! Let's get to the moon on this little rocket ship. Elon Musk is putting that his Twitter profile picture, but like you look at the tokenomics of Doge or Shiba Inu, it's tough for me to get behind because it's like that stuff it's got no supply cap. It's infinitely printed. It's the float or the outstanding shares or tokens of Doge or Shiba Inu is just exponentially going up and to the right.
It's a meme stock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a meme stock. Yeah,
and meme crypto.
Yeah, it's like So it's tough for me. Well, it's not tough for me because I really do enjoy the world of blockchain technology and trying to learn as much as I can about it. But I think my thesis is there's going to be a couple huge players like there was in the Web 2 world. Now we're in the Web 3 world, blockchain world. I think there's going to be a couple of major players that there's going to be this real paradigm shift in how humans transfer value and interact in the financial world. And I think it's actually going to end up then bleeding into every industry.
Yeah. Insurance. I know we talked a lot about the example of if you have smart contracts. So rather than just the financial, I think starting with the financial one is smart because that's a simple one that happens all the time, every single day. Yeah. And it solves a huge problem going from 3 days to instantaneously. So that's like a great first one. But I agree. Then I always hear the example of the smart contracts, right? That the one you explained to me was now you could have a smart contract set up. If you have an insurance company and a smart contract, well, first you could look at the insurance company because it's on a blockchain and you could say, hey, is this a transparent insurance company that actually pays out and does what they say? Well, yes, because I can see it here. I can see the payouts when something actually occurred. I can see the payouts. It's on the smart contract. It's open and transparent.
Exactly.
Right. And then you can decide, yep, I'm going to use them. And then in the smart contract, because from what I understand, Chainlink being the conduit allowing this to happen, it could say, hey, if an event happens, it's going to use the different APIs of a couple different weather stations and automatically execute on the policy for you based on what happened rather than all the challenges and fugazi that's happening right now.
Exactly. And like to even bring that closer to homes, let's say like a house fire happens, like unfortunately we had in the world of construction. If you enter insurance policy with a smart contract, so an insurance company is one player, we're the other player, and we use a smart contract to execute an insurance policy contract. That smart contract now, it's not up for, it'll receive all those data inputs, and it's not up to the insurance company to execute this now. It's both parties have agreed, if this happens, if A, B, C, D, E, F happens, this smart contract executes. Yep. Pays out. And today, right, like in today's world, the way that works, and again, it's not sexy, but it's crazy. Most people have to go through these crazy dragged out processes where the insurance company doesn't want to have to pay out as much as they should be or however much your policy's for. There's always this battle going back and forth, and there's a massive time component to that as well. You just think about time and money, those two things put together, there's a lot to be left on the table between something executing it immediately based on real world facts or two humans battling it out in court or whatever to try to parse through certain words in a contract. And
you're taking the gray area. I think
it's just there's going to be like this massive wave of efficiency in the world of business.
What other ways do you think it's going to impact real estate specifically?
I think what's exciting is like use cases still need to be born, but I think on the blockchain side, right off the bat, what I think of is like you could have like a fungible NFT, which would basically be like a piece of real estate that we're building.
Tokenizing.
Tokenizing a piece of real estate. So you can then like track the 84 unit apartment building that we just completed. You can now track that in real time on the blockchain and say like, okay, this building is, you can set it up, the contract or the tokenized NFT where you say like, okay, this building's got 84 units, X amount of units are rented up on February 1st. And then you can check back in on April 2nd of 2024 on that NFT and there'll be live updates. Yep. Okay, now it's 72% leased up. This is what they're getting per rent, per unit. And I just think that type of transparency, like that real-time transparency, think about how powerful that would be for like the transactions of real estate, where you can now put your piece of real estate on the blockchain and have like real-time data feeding it. And like now you want to get into contract to sell to a new buyer. You think about the time component and like
compiling
and like the due diligence component of like both the seller and the buyer to have to go and say like, okay, are they being serious? Are they actually making this much? I want your rent roll. Are they actually paying on time? What's the deal with like your different appliances? Like you can even have it so detailed where you can say like, this is the last time all the appliances were checked in with the maintenance crew. Like this is when these have been replaced. Like that can all be public information on the blockchain if you tokenize a piece of real estate. And I think, again, it's maybe a little hard to comprehend or wrap your head around, but I foresee it being this just massive burst of transparency and efficiency across all markets.
What about like title and transferring title and title companies? Do you think there's going to be a wave of changing that and how that happens? Because that's one challenging pain point that does occur in a real estate transaction.
Absolutely.
As well.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Like without a doubt that will be a smart contract now where you have a private key signature to say, okay, this is being transferred to Dirk van der Velde from Conor Johnston. And instead of having to go record at a title office or get shipped off a PDF of your chain of title or your all the due diligence documents, like that can happen between just two parties now and be efficiently and effectively transferred a lot quicker than it would be with a title company.
Yeah, the world is going to change 100%. And you like the people who, the same stories that we talked about, there was people who used to go door knocking on business to business saying, hey, have you heard of this thing called the internet? And do you want to get a web page? And people are like, no, what are you talking about? Right. And then 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, look at what has happened. And all the businesses, like you said, all the businesses that have been completely altered by it, and even new businesses that have been born out of it, right? E-commerce businesses that have been born out of it. Without the internet, you would never have an Amazon, right? And so what a crazy thing. And we don't even know what's going to happen quite yet within that world.
Yeah. It's this combination of like a gut feeling, like this makes sense. And then, taking a bet on the way history has played out in the past with these, what were once nascent technologies becoming the norm. Yeah.
Great. The great saying, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Absolutely.
So using that as
absolutely.
Okay. Crypto, that's a great breakdown. And again, it's not financial advice, but pay attention to that thing because it matters and it's coming. What about like real estate specific? What do you like about real estate? Why do you put your money in it? Why do you put your time to it?
I think a couple different aspects that interest me about the industry. I think some of the most successful people that I've had the pleasure of becoming friends with made their wealth through real estate. And it's a vehicle that can both exponentially increase your wealth and help you preserve it, which tends to be actually the harder thing once you accumulate. I think I love the idea that it's a finite thing that you can touch, feel, see, whereas investing in stocks and whatnot it can be kind of it's hard to wrap your head around sometimes, like when you're looking at financial statements of a company and saying like, okay, is this real? Or is this type of information what I'm being fed? Is this the right stuff? Whereas real estate, you can go and walk it, see it, feel it.
Look at comps.
Yeah. You can go check out comps, and you can do that digitally. But I think what interests me most is what it unlocks from a wealth standpoint. And it's a market that can help or pretty quickly jump you into that generational wealth category.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why 90% of millionaires are created through real estate.
Yeah.
There's a reason, because it's the best way for an everyday person with street smarts to grow their wealth. It's not a get rich quick scheme, right? You're not going to get that stock that's going to boom you. It's not a Shiba Inu. It's not a Doge. It's none of those. But if you sharpen your saw, you learn the game, and then every day you get a little bit better at it. In the long term, I think about if you've had real estate for 10 years, that's when it starts to get really, really fun.
Yeah. So. And then I think as well, you start to see the problems that we're having across this country. And that really excites me to be in a market like Bend as well, where the demand is, my opinion, I think, and you share this opinion as well, it's the demand's there, and it's actually only increasing as the realization that we're short of X amount of units across most markets becomes more and more apparent. I think we're in the right spot now to tackle that problem.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. That's why we build it, right?
That's why we build it, man.
That's exactly why we have the company in general. Let's go back to the company. You know, somebody that's listening, they heard what we said, we heard what they don't like. What about the work that it takes, like the amount of hours, time, energy to be in a startup company? Now it's 3 years old, but be in a company and really try to grow it and blow it up. Not just a check-in from 9 to 5, but what about the work that it takes? Touch on that. Yeah,
it's incredibly rewarding, but it's no doubt about it. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I won't call it a sacrifice, because the work I'm doing is incredibly rewarding. The world of real estate and the things that we're doing, building homes for people, blending that with like the idea that I can now create a major amount of wealth for myself, but as well for others in terms of putting roofs over people's heads, is incredibly satisfying. But back to the challenges, I would say it's not for the faint of heart. It takes a massive amount of effort and intentional effort. It's being plugged in every day. It's like you said, it's not a 9 to 5 days a week job. It's full time. It's on the off hours discussing it within your own mind, but also with your peers, with my wife, with you on the phone or on a run. You have to live it to actually want to make it happen. I think most people that have built their empires would probably share the same thoughts. What
are you doing? 60 hours a week, probably? More? A little bit more.
I mean, maybe in that ballpark. But what's nice is I don't think of it like that at all. I really don't. Not even in the slightest. Yeah. And again, it's back to this idea of like, screw the people that say you can't work with your best friend, because it actually makes it that much better. And now that I have two of my best friends, like in this small little tiny office that we have, that's where magic's made. Like I remove myself. I actually do not ever think about the hours that I'm putting into this on a weekly basis, which is pretty special, because if you did that, then I don't think you're in it for the right reason. Like you shouldn't be counting the amount of hours you're having to put towards something. You shouldn't give a shit. You really shouldn't. If you actually want to create something magical and like you want to build an empire, you should live it. And you should be able to incorporate that into your life, into your love life, into your friend's life. And you shouldn't feel held back. You shouldn't ever feel held back if you're trying to create something like we're trying to create.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And speaking of magic, when you're pushing in that much work, when you're doing that much work, because that's what we're doing. One of the ways I've always been sustaining that has always been like, I've been plowing caffeine into my life, like plowing it in, probably drinking like 800 to 1,000 milligrams of caffeine a day, waking up 4 shots of espresso and just pushing the limits. When we're in the office, we're probably doing what? A shot every hour?
I know you to be drinking 12 to 15 shots a day.
Yeah. So what happens though, when you do that is you start to get a burnout. That was what was happening to me. And so I'd get these huge energy ups and downs, And then shout out from a magic side, we found Magic Mind, which Magic Mind, by the way, we just started. I'm on my 7-day trial now, trying to cut back on that caffeine, trying to cut back from having all those big ups and downs. And for the last 7 days, I've been doing, rather than 4 shots in the morning, I've been doing either a single or a double shot plus a Magic Mind. And my energy's been, rather than be this crazy, like, up and down, or where I feel like I just have to keep piling on, revving up, rocket ship up, I've been able to sustain it. And I'm under like 300 milligrams.
Which is like, that's over 50% cut down in caffeine intake.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So Magic Mind's got our office running now. We'll see how it goes. We're 7 days in, but it's been huge. It's been a huge help. And yeah, I'm actually going to have a little Magic Mind right now, but it's been huge. Like, what a difference. We'll see how it unfolds, but shout out.
It's nice if you want to rip through the ingredients list. It's all very legit. I think the main caffeine is the organic matcha green tea that you're getting out of this. Yeah. And then it's just piled on with all the other good stuff. I freaking love olive oil. Yeah. There's nootropics in there. It's a whole shebang. Like, it definitely makes you feel good all day. You've been drinking it. I have been drinking it, and it's working. I'm always skeptical about these like one-off things, or not one-off things, but these like supplements that allegedly will change your life. And you had me try it again about a week ago, and I'm starting to realize that right off the bat, you don't feel like this crazy amount of stimulation or like you do with an espresso shot, like when that thing hits. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's time to go. Yeah. But I find when I drink Magic Mind, it's like a more steady, the caffeine hit comes on a lot more steady, but it's way more sustainable and long lasting. And I'm plugged in, and you're
not fiending for the next one right away.
No, not at all. And I'm not fiending for an espresso shot either now. So it's working. Good. Yeah. We'll have to check back in.
Yeah, it's working. We will. It's working good. It's working real good. What about, let's go, we touched business, we touched running. What about from a soccer side? Like, what about, because you grew up, that's where we met, playing soccer, played on the same team, won a championship together. What about your journey playing sport, playing that game, the life lessons you learned, and then now not playing soccer anymore? How did you deal with that journey? And just tell us a little bit about the soccer career in general.
I think you hear it often enough with athletes, like that team component of being like a team player and learning how to blend and deal with so many different personalities and just types of people in that team environment translates well like into the world outside of sport. And just right off the bat, I know that has been a massive reality and truth for me coming into the world of like business, but sport in general, it provided me opportunities that I would have never dreamed of. I think my twin and I, Rory, first generation college through sport, because we were not that great in the classroom. It wasn't that we didn't have the IQ or whatever that is, or whatever there. It was just our efforts were channeled towards sport, and soccer opened up the door to go get a university education, first in the family. And that's one thing. The classroom was one thing, but the people that I got to meet through sport, I think about my best friend sitting right in front of me, and many others that I would consider to be some of my closest friends, and people I can lean in and lean on for anything and everything. That's what sports provided me. And it was tough being that was like what I focused on. From a kid, I wanted to be a professional soccer player, made the move to Ireland for a couple years, thought we could sign a professional contract, and that didn't happen. Came back to the States, ended up going to college to do it, played at a decent level and won a championship. And through winning that championship, you start to realize like it's funny to see in sport, like the dynamics with teammates is one thing, and like you can have one outcome if you decide to pursue this certain strategy. But then if you just change something up with the same people, you can have a completely different outcome. If decide, or if you focus on how you can manipulate the people that you have. Manipulate may not be the right word, but use the people that you have to try to execute on a different goal. Like what I'm getting at is like when we were at Portland, when you first came to Portland, we weren't having very much success. But it was cool to see like the people that we had on the team didn't change. But we had a leader step in and
the blueprint.
Exactly. Yeah.
The leadership,
that's the word I'm looking for. The blueprint. That's changed. What changed. And that you can bring that into the world of business. As an entrepreneur, if something's not working, you can check in and say, okay, is our system working? Is our blueprint working? We need to, and then you need to trust that blueprint and follow through. And there's going to be ups and downs. And that's what I loved about sport was the amount of disappointing moments I had in my life, but then that led to some of the most euphoric and exciting moments too. You wonder right after sport whether or not you'll find that again, and think this world of like a startup is just, boy, do you find that. There are some low moments, but then there are some euphoric moments as well along the way. And I think those types of challenges, it's what I was seeking, and it's what I'm finding now. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I never knew, once I didn't hit the goal of being a professional soccer player, I never knew, I wasn't quite wise enough yet to understand what all those years of playing was actually going to do for me. You spend your whole life obsessing about this game, and then you don't hit the dream, the goal that you wanted to get to. And then you're like, okay, well, so then what did I get out of all of this? And it's the life lessons that you learn along the way, trying to compete and become the best version of yourself, and the relationships and team sports that you gain that far surpass, not reaching that goal. And reaching for a goal, that within itself is reaching for this huge, audacious goal that only 1% or 1% of 1% actually make happen, and falling short, that within itself, dealing with that and then taking all the lessons from it, that within itself is a major gift.
Yeah.
Right. So sports, for that reason, are one of the most magical things you can give to a young like a young child.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's tough because you might not be able to relate to that, the sport component, but what I would urge people to look inwards for is that dream, that goal. I mean, it's cliche, but to have those small ones, but that scare you, like this 240 marathon that we're going to try to go after.
Yeah.
Like that, those things are what keeps life exciting, and the unknowns can be quite scary, but I think that you need to have those to keep the ball rolling, and to keep yourself in this kind of growth mindset. It's always achieving something greater than you maybe think you can do or believe you can accomplish, but to try.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What, since we're creating a little time capsule for this one in general, what would be something, looking back, now that you're almost 30, what would be something you would say to the 20-year-old Conor? What would be a piece of advice you would give him?
I would say find yourself a partner first that you can confide in and trust. I was fortunate enough to meet my wife. She was 20 and I was 22, 23 at the time. But I would say commit earlier. We got married about a year ago, and I was dragged my feet for 6 years. I would say, I found the one. I knew that Eve was going to be my life partner. So that was a scary one for me, making that type of commitment. I had a tough enough upbringing where I saw my parents divorce, and it was that type of commitment was pretty scary for me because I saw the carnage. It's like, if this relationship doesn't work out, then what's the collateral of that? But I knew in my heart that I loved Eva, and I was committed to her for life. So I could have made that commitment a lot sooner. So 20-year-old Conor, make that commitment sooner. But I would say lean into your mentors more. Find a mentor, which I, again, was fortunate enough to find at 24, a mentor that had accomplished and done exactly what I want to accomplish and do. But I believe I could have leaned into that mentor more and asked more questions and become more vulnerable. I think I had a little bit too much of an ego to maybe ask what I thought were dumb questions, but to just really be an open book and to not put up your walls and be scared of being perceived as someone who doesn't know the answer or doesn't have the knowledge of some that you maybe should have or that's long-winded, but yeah.
That's a beautiful reflection. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. I could not agree more. What are one or two books that influenced your life?
Let me put a second into this, but
you don't know how to read?
I don't know how to fucking read. That's a tough question. I need to be a better reader.
You gotta have one book that changed your life.
Changed my life. The one by Coelho,
Pablo Coelho, The Alchemist.
The Alchemist. Yeah, I can't even remember the title of that one, dude. But that's back to like following your gut and reading the omens and staying in touch with indicators around the world. Like I think you got to be extremely aware. Just focus on being aware.
Yeah.
That was a really good book.
Yeah.
I think that's the general premise of that book is following your gut and reading the signs. Yeah.
Yeah. Following your personal legend, listening to the omens, and The Alchemist is hands down one of my favorites as well.
Well, what do you have another one?
The Alchemist, books that like really pivotally changed my life. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And then from a business book, the all-time cliche, the godfather of all godfathers, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
That one just like shattered my brain essentially. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, gave me the paradigm shift of wait a second here.
This is how you build wealth.
Yeah, and it's funny because on those things, any piece of knowledge, I think when it hits you right in the face, it means it's a universal truth.
Yeah.
If you're in tune and it hits you right in the face, it's a universal truth. So yeah, those books are phenomenal. Well, brother, thanks for coming on.
Of course.
I love creating for the community with you. I love being able to build this business. It'd be fun to look back 12 monds from now, get back on, talk about business, talk about what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I think if this 12 months that just happened, it's been insanely exciting, it's crazy, chaotic, trying to build these systems. It'll be really nice check-in in a year's time to say, hey, where are we at now?
That's right. And with that, we will see you on the next one, baby.